Just your thoughts, being at Howard, being affiliated with Howard University, your thoughts on the Deion Sanders experience at Jackson State.
I think that this is a really good example of kind of I'll call it a Venn diagram of life, where you have people that are really into HBCUs and not necessarily into college sports that much.
Right.
You have people that are really into college sports and don't really know that much about HBCUs. And you're doing it with a person that is a lightning rod like Deion. Deion's been famous for 30 years.
Yeah.
He's been famous my entire life.
It's not more than, I think it's more than 30
It might be,
years.
yeah, it might be even be more than 30 years.
Yeah.
And so you have this lightning rod that everyone identifies and recognizes. And so now everyone feels comfortable speaking on this. I think on the HBCU side, if you're not really heavily into college sports like that, especially college football, the idea of him not only leaving, but then taking with him these players, his son, Hunter, who was a top prospect when he flipped him from Florida State.
Number 2 recruit in the entire class.
And he went to Jackson State, which was a huge deal. And should have been
from Florida State to Jackson State, and
now they're going to be going to Colorado.
Yeah, they
and so
actually already announced it today.
Yeah. And so I can understand you being like, well, what's going on? You're using us as a stepping stone to get to this place, and that triggers a whole bunch of HBCU grads too, because for a lot of people, they see our degree as somehow lesser than, and it's not lesser than. Our experience is just vastly different. We went there to have a vastly different experience. And so the idea of being used so that you can then go and white flight it over to PWI like Colorado, it really brings up a lot of other issues. It's part of the reason that we were so hyped when Vice President Kamala Harris got that position, because it was like, I told you so. Ours is just as good. That Howard degree right there, it'll get you to 1600 Pennsylvania. And so it was a moment of like, we always knew, but now everybody else can know, and we don't have to make that fight anymore. And so him leaving, and some of the comments, he had said something about Isaiah Land, who was a defensive end for FAMU, who is going to play on Sundays, but was making the decision whether or not he wanted to enter the portal and leave FAMU. He was like, he commented on his Instagram, you shouldn't do that because we've seen people make it from HBCUs to the NFL, and you leaving sends a bad message. So yeah, that's a little hypocritical, right?
A little bit.
It's a little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. But the idea of him gutting or somehow taking the best of us isn't. It's not the case, because this is college football. You want big time college football. You want to be covered in a certain sort of way. This comes along with it. Every college football coach in the country is trying to get a better job.
Right.
And even if they're not trying to leave their job, they're going to tell their current employer they might go get another job so you can give me more money.
Right.
That is just the facts of the life. You can be mad about it. Don't take that out on Sanders. That has nothing to do with him. Like, that is just the way things go. And so it was so much of that, but it was also a lot of pain, because it's different when we leave, like when A&T left the MEAC, when Hampton left
they're in
the MEAC.
Colonial
they're
now.
in Colonial now.
They didn't stay in the Big South very
Their
long.
homecoming game was versus Campbell. You know what I mean? Like, that don't hit the same.
Right.
And so, like, there's the idea of being left behind so you can do bigger and better things. That it tied into a whole bunch of that sort of stuff. It's different from even when Jimbo leaves Florida State and goes to Texas A&M. It's different because we had to carve and scratch and fight and die for this space for HBCUs. The education of black people in this country was dangerous in and of itself. And if you look at some of the educational discussions we have now around race, it's still dangerous to some people. And so leaving an institution of higher learning for a space that didn't want us before, it's always going to hit a little bit different. It's always going to hurt some more. And I get it. It's just not fair to place that all on Deion Sanders.
Right.
That would be my only thing. It just wasn't fair to then make him to be out of some person that's somehow trying to, a traitor or some of the other stuff that
he sold a different story at the beginning.
True.
Because he sold the story he had to sell.
Right.
Right. Because this was the job that he was allowed to get.
Yes.
I mean, he wanted Florida State.
He wanted Florida State, but there were two problems. Didn't have a degree.
Right.
So he went to an HBCU that had a fast track degree to get his degree, and then I think a month later he was named the head coach of Jackson State.
Sidney Lowe, by the way, did the same thing.
Absolutely.
Right? To be able to be the head coach at NC State. So he used Jackson State But he sold it. He sold it differently at the beginning. And I watched the interview he did with Michael Strahan, product of Texas Southern, right? Another HBCU. And that was all about, doing it for the HBCU. He sold that, and he left. He didn't even leave for a great job. He left for a Power 5 job, which obviously will pay him more money than he made at Jackson State.
And his assistants.
And his assistants.
That he takes with him from Jackson State, which is important too.
And I think you can win at Colorado, and especially you can win at Colorado in the version of the Pac-12 we are going to see. So Colorado is not his last stop. He'll be at Colorado. If he does well, he'll be at Colorado 3 years, and maybe he'll go back to Florida State eventually.
I think that is ultimately where he because he's already talked about Coach says this all the time that he doesn't want to coach in the NFL because he's got I've made fun of Dabo for some of his takes. Deion Sanders has some pretty close sentiments when it comes to NIL stuff in particular. He doesn't like it. He feels like, hey, I don't want to deal with. His thing is, I don't want to deal with entitled NFL players and stuff and it's like prime time. What are we doing?
Well, he doesn't want to deal with him.
Right, exactly.
Which is fine.
He knows that.
But here's the thing that I ultimately think that this is good, and this could be wrong, I don't know. The athletic experience in today's HBCU, the athletic experience is really supposed to be, I think, extracurricular, as opposed to big money, get on TV. I think it's supposed to be.
I think that's what it is.
This enhances the college experience, and I don't know. I think ultimately the attention that it raised is good. It's going to show that there are good athletes at HBCUs. If Lavelle Moten hasn't gained more national attention at NC Central with the success that they've had and the profile that he has, well, it's probably not ever going to happen. But I think it's more about this is the college experience, and this is what athletics can do. Homecomings are about fun and parties, and my experience going to covering the CIAA tournaments.
Love going to CIAA tournaments. I
did too, and I was so sad when it left Raleigh.
Heartbroken.
So I think ultimately it'll be fine that Deion is not there. But again, I'm probably not the expert on this. This is just a guess.
I'm not going to defame any black coach for getting a Power 5 job because we have so few of those anyway. Right? I do think that there's also probably a larger conversation to be had that maybe now some of these institutions are going to look at HBCUs and look at their coaching staffs a little bit different. Like, hey, they're doing a lot of good work over here. There's talent over here. But even just me saying that, I can hear the gatekeepers being like, no, you stay over there. You didn't want us before, stay over there. And I get that. But you also have to deal with you're dealing with real human beings that might just have different things that they want to do with their careers in life. And you shouldn't have to sacrifice so much because you want to change some stuff up and you want to do something a little bit differently. I don't think that that's his burden. If he wanted to do that, hey man, God bless him, do it. But if you don't, I'm glad you're here. Now, if I'm being honest, there's some of this stuff with that when LeBron left Cleveland, some of this stuff played in too. You also know you're not going to be as good next year without him.
Yes. No, they're not.
You're not.
You lose your starting quarterback and your
wide receiver / quarterback. You're not going to be as good. And if we're being honest, I think some of that plays into it, at least with the Jackson State alum of, hey, our program was in a place that hadn't been in a while, and
they were great.
You had college game day there, which is not the end all be all. I understand, but
that's good though.
It's pretty damn good. That's a pretty damn good feeling, and Deion was a big part of that. Yeah. He was a big part of raising money for them. He was a big part of I think Charles Barkley and his donation to Jackson State. He was just, you can be mad that it wasn't for longer, but don't take that out on him as he should have been there forever. Because the other thing is, I think he went 27-5 as a head coach. Yeah. If he had gone 5-27, you would have fired him. Oh, yeah. It can't be bigger than football, and then if you lose, it's not bigger than football. No, come on now.
They had good players, but they won a lot. There's a lot of teams out there with good players. Right. Hey, I believe Texas A&M had good players.
Bloop.
Didn't work out. How do you not be bowl eligible at Texas A&M?